has a means to no end in Egypt. 2 years after the January 25th uprising, Egyptians are still dying for their most basic rights. Stifled by infectious poverty, record unemployment, state oppression, and paralyzing inflation, Egyptians still protesting charge President Mohamed Morsi with maintaining the old regime's status quo. Patience for the government's promised reforms are quickly fading, as daily survival has brought many to desperation. Egyptians unleashed their frustrations throughout last week. Government buildings and institutions were lit ablaze, resembling Mubarak's demise 2 years ago. Meanwhile, the ghosts of Egypt's notorious state security apparatus returned with a vengeance. Egypt's rebellious youth have become harder to contain. Clashing with government forces is now routine for young Egyptians on the front lines. Brutalized by police, marginalized by society, and condemned as thugs and hooligans by the media, some young revolutionaries are feeling alienated.
احنا ما نعرفش نصور فين في المرحلة دي. ده الصراحة تم يعني. الموضوع بقى محير جدا ومفيش أي طريق واضح قدامنا ولا أي خطة واضحة. المعارضة فاشلة جدا، النخبة فاشلة جدا، الشباب لوحدها هي اللي بتتبهدل، هي اللي تشتبك، يعني هي اللي بيحصل فيها مصادمات ما بينه وما بين النظام. كله بيقول لك حوار وطني وسلمية وحكومة إنقاذ وطني، كله كلام بيتكرر، سامعين نفس الكلام بقالنا سنتين.
The unity that once defined the revolution has been fragmented by divisions and confusion over whether to engage politically or keep fighting in the streets. The newly formed National Salvation Front, comprised of former presidential candidates, over a dozen political parties, and former Mubarak regime figures, has become the negotiating point for the government. During the recent turmoil, the newly formed Black Bloc, an anonymous group of battle-ready young men, were blamed for inciting unrest. Their identities concealed by black masks, they were labeled as both villains and defenders during the recent street fights. Suddenly, the unknown group became a cult phenomenon in the square and a nuisance for the police.
عشان هم افكارهم كويسه وعجبتني وعبد الرحمن بيتفرج دايما ومتابع معايا. هو فكرهم ان هم بيضحوا بنفسهم عشان خاطر البلد وعشان خاطر ينهضوا بالبلد.
By Friday morning, demonstrators decided to end the bloody week outside the gates of the presidential palace. There, angry youth launched Molotov cocktails and fireworks into the palace's courtyard, lighting it ablaze. The police responded using the same tactics, but their attempts did little to ward off battle-trained Egyptians who have been gassed in protests for the past 2 years. Overwhelmed by the tear gas, some police fell to the ground.
Some of the officers who were trying to protect the presidential palace were tear gassed so badly that they passed out. And the protesters, being now 2 years experienced in the government's tear gas, took in the police officers and they're taking care of them on this side. This is an unusual thing because it's usually the police who are the arch nemesis of the demonstrators.
The police returned to their posts to face down the protesters. And not before long, police forces were caught on live television, stripping 42-year-old Hamada Saber naked, beating and dragging his flimsy body toward their armed personal carrier. The video immediately went viral, and within a half hour was broadcast worldwide. It wasn't the only shocking video to come out of last week.
دي مش خناقة. في بنت مزنوقة جوه الدايرة دي.
This video, captured by activists on the 25th, revealed the savage nature of a mass mobbing. In the center of this human whirlpool, a woman was being stripped of her clothes, relentlessly groped, and finger-raped by hundreds of hands. Volunteers with anti-sexual harassment campaigns, seen here in white shirts and yellow helmets, struggle to ward off the ravenous packs, But even with flames, sticks, metal rods, and machetes, the mobs of men nearly overtake them, trying to reach the terrified woman. Nearly an hour later, the woman is remarkably taken to safety. While sexual harassment is a daily occurrence for an overwhelming majority of women in Egypt, volunteers insist the mass mobs are a result of state-sponsored repression.
For us, makes it clear that it's organized and it's political. This is not the first time that the government uses sexual violence to intimidate men and women, especially women. We've been seeing since Mubarak years until now, the government paying thugs, and it's proven, to come and sexually harass women. They would come to the protest and not beat up women, just sexually harass them, undress them. It's a continuous pattern of sexual humiliation, and they did the same to men. They undressed men in police stations. We saw over years and years videos coming out of police stations of men being raped with tools by policemen. So it's a pattern of violence.
Silencing opposition through violence has long been a key tool of Egypt's notorious security forces. Human rights reports indicate state repression, intimidation, torture, arbitrary detention, and murder all took place during last week's violence. Hamada, whose naked, beaten body was broadcast worldwide, later told the media he was beaten by protesters, not the police. On a TV talk show, Hamada's daughter begged her father to tell the truth. Eventually, he admits it was the police.
في نوبة غضب عند الشباب كلها وبتفرغها في الناس اللي هم كانوا بيسحلوا وبيضربوا الناس لمدة سنين ولحد دلوقتي لسه بيسحلوا ولسه بيضربوا الناس ولسه بيعذبوا الناس وعندهم البجاحة ان هم لما يسحلوا واحد امبارح قدام الكاميرا ويطلعوا قدام الشعب كله يقول لك المتظاهرين هم اللي ضربوني. الواحد ساعتها لازم يفهم ان مفيش حاجة اتغيرت. فالشباب هتعمل ايه؟ ما هو طبيعي لازم الشباب هتنزل تضرب في الداخلية. اهو غاز ورصاص حي وخراطيش وناس بتتصاب كل يوم والواحد بيتعور وبيشوف اصحابه بيتعوروا. طب الشباب المفروض تعمل ايه؟ المفروض احنا نقعد في بيتنا يعني ونستحمل الخرا ده؟ لا.
Once a banned political organization and often victims of police brutality themselves, the Muslim Brotherhood fought alongside revolutionaries during the 18 days to topple their former dictator. However, the Brotherhood lost its status amongst revolutionaries after they abandoned street protests for politics. Now that the Brotherhood has a president in power and dominates the parliament, many accuse them of sequestering the revolution's demands for political gain to geopolitical powers.
انت عايز تبيع البلد لقطر اوكي بيعها بس تعالى دوس على الجثث بتاعتنا اوكي مفيش مشاكل دوس على الجثث بتاعتنا وروح بيع البلد لقطر انت عايز تعمل مشروع شر التفريعه انا معاك يا سيدي دخل شركات حكوميه اعمل مناقصه عالميه مش بالامر المباشر.
As the injured continue to die throughout the week, Egypt's military flew its newly purchased F-16s over Cairo's skies. While Egypt flared up, Washington was deciding whether to amend Egypt's annual $1.5 billion in aid. The U.S. has been cautious to criticize its closest Arab ally. In response to the bloody week of unrest, incoming Secretary of State Senator John Kerry said ending U.S. aid would lead to even more chaos in Egypt. Reassuring U.S. lawmakers, President Morsi is good for U.S. interests in the region. By Monday morning, a well-known revolutionary activist named Mohammed Gindi gave in to his injuries. Brutally tortured while in police custody, Gindi has become President Morsi's Khalid Said, the infamous torture case that initially sparked the revolution. During Gindi's funeral in his hometown Tanta, mourners attacked the police station. They retaliated with tear gas and rubber bullets. President Morsi is meeting with officials from the Interior Ministry about last week's violence. But for many Egyptians, they are not waiting for the authorities and going after those who perpetrate violence against them. Incidents of attacks on police stations throughout the country are increasing. An eerie calm has set into the city, but for many, it's only a matter of time before these streets are stained with blood once again. Jahan Hafiz for The Real News, Cairo, Egypt.